She came to the wrong ranch and saved the man who thought he was beyond saving. The blood came first, dark, startling, hot against her freezing skin. Eleanor Price pressed her palm to the knife wound in her side as the world narrowed into white noise and spinning snow. Somewhere beside her, a little girl screamed a single word that stopped Eleanor's heart cold. "Mama." Not miss. Not ma'am. Mama. And standing in front of them, face blank as winter stone, was the man with the dead eyes, his blade lifting again. Eleanor had come west believing she was headed toward a quiet marriage, a second chance, maybe even a life where she could pretend the past didn't exist. Instead, she'd stepped straight into someone else's nightmare. But what mattered now wasn't how she got here or the mistakes that brought her to this frozen stretch of Wyoming territory. What mattered was that a silent, broken child had chosen her. And Eleanor Price would not let anyone take that away. But to understand how she ended up bleeding in the snow, we have to go back to the beginning. Wyoming territory, December 1874. The stagecoach lurched to a stop, jolting Eleanor forward so sharply her teeth clicked. The driver didn't look at her as he heaved her trunk off the back and dropped it into the snow with a dull thud. "You sure about this, miss?" he muttered, stomping his boots to shake off the cold. His eyes flicked toward the silhouette of a ranch house in the distance, a dark, low shape pressed against the roaring blizzard. "Ain't too late to ride on to Green Hollow. Storm's coming in mean." Eleanor pulled her wool cloak tight, though it did little good. Wind knifed straight through it. "I'm expected," she said, forcing her voice steady. "Mr. Whitaker is waiting for me." The driver spit tobacco into the snow. "If you say so." Then he climbed back onto the coach and snapped the reins without offering her so much as a hand. Within seconds, the stagecoach vanished into the white, leaving Eleanor alone, half frozen, holding a letter she had read so many times the edges had curled. She looked down at the ink smeared by her glove. "Dear Miss Price, Mr. Nathaniel Whitaker of Silver Mesa Ranch, Wyoming Territory, has accepted your application for matrimony. A widower, respectable, owner of land, seeking a woman of moral character to manage his home. A future, she told herself, a chance to stop drifting, a chance not to be pitted, not to be the damaged nurse who returned from the war changed, not to be the woman whispered about in church pews and charity lines." The wind howled so loudly it drowned her own thoughts. She gripped the trunk handle and began dragging it through the snow, one agonizing step at a time. Her boots, city leather, delicate and unsuitable, filled with ice. By the time she reached the porch, her fingers were numb despite the gloves, her knuckles bleeding from cold. Smoke curled from the chimney. Someone was inside. She raised her fist and knocked. Nothing. She knocked again, harder. "Hello, Mr. Whitaker? It's Eleanor Price, from the matrimonial agency." Still nothing. Panic fluttered in her ribs. She tried the handle. Locked. "Please," she whispered, pounding on the wood. "Please, I've come so far." The door jerked open. A man filled the frame, tall, broad-shouldered, rifle at his side. Not pointing, but not welcoming either. His face was all sharp lines, a strong jaw, a straight nose, eyes the gray of storm clouds over water. Snow clung to the dark hair, brushing his collar. He looked nothing like the photograph she'd been sent. "Who are you?" he said, voice rough from disuse. Eleanor straightened, though her knees shook. "My name is Eleanor Price. I'm here to marry Mr. Nathaniel Whitaker. This is Silver Mesa Ranch, isn't it?" The man stared at her like she had spoken nonsense. Then, "My name is Cole Maddox. I own this ranch, and I didn't send for a bride." The world dipped sideways. Eleanor gripped the doorframe. "But the letter, I don't care what the letter says." His voice wasn't cruel, just tired. "There's no Whitaker here. Never has been. Whatever you were told, miss, it was wrong." "No," she whispered. "That can't be." He moved to shut the door. Eleanor thrust her boot into the gap, pain lancing up her leg. "Please. The coach is gone. The storm. I have nowhere to go." For a moment, only the wind answered. Something flickered in Cole Maddox's eyes. Not pity. Recognition. A wounded person sensing another. He sighed through his nose. Fine. One night. Spare room. At first light, I take you back to Green Hollow. Understood. Yes, she breathed. Thank you. Don't thank me. Not yet. He stepped back. Come in. She dragged her trunk across the threshold. Warmth hit her, so suddenly her skin hurt. The ranch house was simple. Papa was sleeping. There was blood, so much blood. Cole's face went white. Lila suddenly lunged from his arms and threw herself around Eleanor's neck, sobbing into her shoulder as if she'd known her forever. Stay, Lila whispered. Please stay. Eleanor held her like she had once held dying men, held her like she had once begged to be held herself, held her like a mother. Cole stood frozen, horror and hope warring in his eyes. For years of silence undone in one night. And Eleanor Price, the stranger who'd arrived on the wrong doorstep, was the one Lila clung to like she was the only safe thing left in the world. Lila clung to Eleanor with such desperate strength that Eleanor had to brace her feet to keep from stumbling. The girl's sobs shook her small body, hot tears soaking through Eleanor's nightdress. The storm outside howled against the windows, but the sound inside the ranch house was worse. A child's grief ripping open old wounds. Cole stood frozen in the doorway. No breath, no movement, just shock carved into a man's face that had forgotten how to feel anything but duty and pain. He hadn't heard his daughter's voice in nearly 4 years. Now she was speaking, screaming, begging for a woman she had met less than 1 day ago. Lila, Cole whispered, voice cracking. He stepped forward, uncertain, hands half raised. Sweetheart, Papa's here. You're safe. But Lila didn't even look at him. She buried her face deeper against Eleanor's shoulder, fingers curled in death-gripped fists against her collar. Don't leave, the girl whispered, voice small as a ghost. Don't go. Please don't go. Eleanor stroked the child's trembling back, her hand moving on instinct, the same instinct she'd used in the field hospitals when soldiers cried for mothers who couldn't come. I'm here, she murmured softly. You're safe. Nothing's going to hurt you. Cole swallowed hard. His chest rose, then fell. He looked broken in a way Eleanor didn't know how to name. Put her down, Cole said quietly, not commanding, just overwhelmed. Please, I need to talk to her. Eleanor tried. Lila, sweetheart, let's sit down, all right? Your papa wants, no. Lila's scream hit like a slap. She clutched tighter and sobbed harder. Cole flinched as if struck. Eleanor met his eyes, gray, storm-wrecked, exhausted. Let me hold her, she whispered. Just for a moment. He hesitated. Every line in his body said no. Every tremble in his hands said yes. Finally, he nodded once, a gesture sharp enough it almost hurt. Eleanor carried Lila to the sofa near the fire. The warmth made the girl's sobs soften, then shift into shuddering breaths. Eleanor sat with her, rocking slowly, the old springs of the sofa creaking under their weight. Cole stood near the hearth like a man, witnessing a miracle he didn't dare believe. She ain't said anything since the accident, he murmured. Not one word, not one cry, just silence. Eleanor didn't look up. Trauma does that to the mind. It hides pieces away until it feels safe. So she feels safe with you? The question was raw, vulnerable. Cole wasn't asking like a cowboy. He was asking like a father terrified of losing the only thing he had left. She feels something, Eleanor answered. Something familiar, maybe. Something she trusts. Lila tugged on Eleanor's sleeve, voice hoarse. Mama, don't let him take you. Eleanor froze. Cole did too. No one is taking me, Eleanor whispered, choosing her words with care. You're safe. I saw him, Lila choked. There was snow, and the horse kicked, and Mama. Eleanor pressed a hand to the girl's hair. Sure, it's all right. Cole looked away, jaw tightening, eyes burning. She found her mama in the snow, he said, voice barely audible. I didn't get there fast enough. Eleanor lifted her gaze. It wasn't your fault. You don't know. That. I do, she said gently. Because grief always says the same lie. Cole shut his eyes. A beat passed. Another. Then the storm rattled the windows so violently the whole house shivered. I need coffee, he muttered, rubbing his face. Lord knows I'm too tired for sense tonight. He walked to the kitchen, boots heavy on the floorboards. Eleanor kept rocking. Lila's breathing slowed, her cheek warm against Eleanor's collarbone. The girl's small body finally relaxed, like a coiled spring unspooling. After a long silence, the kitchen lantern lit from the doorway as Cole returned, 2 tin cups in hand. He set one on the small table beside her. You must be freezing, he said quietly. Eleanor whispered, Thank you, careful not to wake the child. Cole stared at Lila, as though trying to memorize something fragile. I don't understand why she spoke to you. Eleanor hesitated. She shouldn't have said it, but truth mattered, because you remind her of something she lost. Cole stiffened. Her mother. No, Eleanor whispered. Oh, the words were soft, steady, honest. Cole looked like he didn't know whether to walk away or kneel beside them. Outside, the storm screamed. Inside, the fire popped gently, filling the silence between them. Minutes slipped by until Lila finally drifted into sleep. Her fingers loosened from Eleanor's collar, her breathing even. Eleanor eased her into Cole's arms. He looked stunned, like he held something holy. Thank you, Cole whispered. I don't have words for what you just did. Eleanor brushed a curl from Lila's forehead. You're her father. She needs you. For a moment, Cole looked like he might cry. Then his walls slammed back into place. You should rest, he said. You've had a long day. So have you. He didn't answer. He carried Lila back to her room, each step slow, careful, protective. When he returned, he leaned against the doorframe and studied Eleanor with an expression she didn't understand. Not suspicion, not blame, something deeper, something wary, something almost frightened. You ain't staying till morning, Cole said softly. You're staying as long as you need. Eleanor blinked. Cole, you don't even know me. That don't matter, he said. Lila does. And she chose you. First words she said in years were to you. I can't ignore that. Eleanor's throat tightened. It was just a night terror. Maybe, he said, but something in her woke up when you walked in this house. He paused. You can leave if you want, but you don't have to. The fire crackled. The storm raged. Her pulse matched both. I don't know what my place is here, Eleanor whispered. Cole swallowed. Maybe we find that out together. Silence. Then, a loud crash against the back wall. A thud heavy enough to shake dust from the rafters. Cole stiffened instantly. The softness vanished. He grabbed his rifle and moved toward the window, shifting into a man forged by war and loss. What was that? Eleanor whispered, heart racing. Cole didn't answer. He peered through the frosted pane, breath fogging the glass. His jaw clenched. Tracks, he murmured. Fresh tracks. From what? Cole lifted the rifle higher. Men. Eleanor's blood went cold. Cole. Who would be out here in a storm like this? He didn't look away from the window. Only men who don't want to be seen. Another thud shook the house, this time closer. Cole stepped back from the door, voice lowering to a tone more dangerous than shouting. Get behind me. Now. Eleanor moved without thinking. Another slam, this one at the front door. Cole shifted his stance, rifle raised. They followed you, he whispered. Eleanor's breath hitched. No, they couldn't have. Someone sent you here under a false name, Cole said. Someone who didn't want you reaching Green Hollow. Someone who knew you'd be isolated. Here. Eleanor felt the world tilt. A shadow passed across the front window. Then another. Cole's voice dropped to a rough whisper, full of fury and fear. Whoever they are, they ain't here by accident. A hand pounded on the door, hard enough to splinter the wood. Lila screamed from her bedroom, and everything inside the house shifted. Cole Maddox's eyes hardened into something ruthless, protective, ready to fight to the death. He stepped forward, rifle steady. Eleanor, he said, without looking back. Yes. No matter what happens, his voice roughened, stay behind me. The pounding at the front door rattled every board in the house. Eleanor froze, breath caught halfway in her chest. Cole didn't flinch. He stood at an angle to the entry, rifle anchored against his shoulder, one finger resting lightly beside the trigger. The fire crackled softly behind them, the only warm sound in a room now swallowed by danger. Another fist crashed against the door. "Who is it?" Eleanor whispered. "Don't know," Cole murmured. "But they ain't knocking like neighbors." A long, low groan pushed from the wood as the doorframe strained under the blows. Snow whistled through the cracks, carried by the blizzard outside. Cole motioned her back with one sharp flick of his fingers. Eleanor obeyed. Her heart pounded loud enough she feared whoever stood on the other side might hear it through the storm. Then, from down the hall, "Papa!" Lila screamed again. Her voice cut right through Cole's chest. Eleanor saw it happen, saw the man break and harden at the same time. "Stay here," he said. "No," Eleanor whispered. "You need both hands free. Let me bring her." His eyes locked on hers. He didn't argue. Eleanor sprinted down the hall, the floorboards cold under her thin stockings. She burst into Lila's room and found the girl curled in the corner again, hands clamped over her ears, tears streaking her pale cheeks. Eleanor dropped to her knees. "Lila, sweetheart, look at me." The child's terrified eyes lifted. "What's happening?" she whispered. "Nothing bad. Not if we stay together. Is he coming back?" Lila's voice trembled. "The man who hurt Mama?" Eleanor's heart twisted. "No," she said firmly. "I won't let anyone hurt you." She scooped the girl into her arms. Lila tightened her arms around Eleanor's neck so fiercely it knocked the air from her lungs. The pounding at the door continued, louder now. Wood splintered. "Eleanor!" Cole called. She ran. They reached the main room just as the entire doorframe shuddered under another blow. Snow blasted inward in a burst of icy wind. Cole extended one hand toward Lila. "Give her to me." Lila hesitated. "No," she whispered. "Stay with Mama." Eleanor swallowed hard. Cole's eyes flickered, pain, fear, longing, all in a single heartbeat. He lifted his chin. "All right, keep hold of her. Stay low." Eleanor knelt behind the sofa, Lila clinging to her. The child's small body trembled against Eleanor's chest. Cole took a step closer to the door. "Whoever you are," he called out, "you best speak your name before you lose your chance to keep it." Silence. Then, a man's voice, muffled by wind and wood. "Cole Maddox." Eleanor felt Cole tense. He lowered the rifle a fraction. "Identify yourself." A heavy cough answered. Then, Grant Caldwell. "Open up. Damn you, it's freezing out here." Cole exhaled hard, shoulders dropping, but only a little. "Grant," he muttered under his breath. "What in hell?" He unlocked the door and hauled it open. A blast of snow and wind hit him full in the face. A man stumbled inside, older than Cole by at least 10 years, lean, with a coat crusted in ice, a pistol holstered at his side, and guilt written across every line of his face. Behind him came 2 more riders, shivering and pale with frost. They pushed the door shut fast as they could. Eleanor didn't move from behind the sofa. Cole lowered, his rifle only halfway. "You damn near broke my door." Grant coughed again. "That's because you didn't answer." "I didn't answer because you were beating on it like outlaws." Grant stomped snow off his boots. "Because outlaws ain't far behind us." Cole stiffened again. The rifle came back up, firm in his hands. "What outlaws?" Grant's eyes flicked toward Eleanor, then to Lila, then back to Cole. "The kind who've been looking for that woman." Eleanor felt every drop of blood drain from her face. Lila clung tighter. Cole slowly turned his head toward her. His jaw flexed once. "Explain." Grant sighed. "I reckon I best start from the beginning." Cole didn't lower the rifle. Grant sank onto a chair near the fire, rubbing his hands together. 3 days ago, a man showed up in Green Hollow looking for a nurse named Eleanor Price. Eleanor's breath hitched. "He had your description exact. Said you stole something. Said he was hired to fetch you back." Eleanor's fingers shook. "He's lying. I stole nothing." Grant held up a hand. "I don't care about truth just yet. I'm telling you what he told the saloon." Cole took one careful step toward Grant. "So you came to warn us?" "Warn you?" Grant huffed out a humorless laugh. "Boy, I came because those men know she was headed for Silver Mesa Ranch. They're following the storm. They'll reach her land by dawn." Eleanor pressed her hand over Lila's ear so she wouldn't hear. Cole's grip on the rifle was white-knuckled. "What men?" Grant leaned back, voice dropping to a grim whisper. 4 hire guns. Hard men. The worst kind. They said the woman ain't leaving this territory alive. Lila whimpered. Eleanor held her tighter. Cole's expression went cold. Why didn't you bring the sheriff? Grant's jaw clenched. Because Sheriff Doyle is the one who sent me. Eleanor gasped. What? Grant hesitated, then looked straight at her. Because the man after you is your husband. Eleanor felt the world tilt. I don't have a husband, she whispered. Grant shook his head slowly. Ma'am, I'm sorry to tell you, but the man in Green Hollow swore he was your legal spouse. Eleanor's vision blurred. No, she choked. That's impossible. She was shaking now. The past clawed up her throat, threatening to choke her. Cole stepped in front of her, not touching her, just shielding her from Grant's stare. You don't believe him, Eleanor whispered. No, Cole said. I believe you. Warmth flooded her chest. She'd forgotten what it felt like, to be believed without question. Grant blew out a breath. Sheriff knows something ain't right. That's why he sent me. Told me to warn Cole Maddox, because Cole never could mind his own business. Cole snorted. You're damn right. But the men chasing her ain't gonna stop, Grant said. They're paid too well. Cole lowered the rifle slowly. How many hours till they reach the ranch? 4. Maybe less. Depends on the storm. Cole nodded once, decision forming behind his eyes. We ride out, Grant said. Slip north across the ridge. Lose him. Cole shook his head. Can't. Why? Cole glanced at Lila. Grant's face softened. The girl. I won't drag her into a blizzard, Cole said. Not again. Grant rubbed his temples. Then we fight. Cole didn't argue. Eleanor gasped. No, Cole, you can't. There are 4 armed men. His gaze snapped to hers. Yes, I can. She rose slowly from behind the sofa, still holding Lila to her shoulder. You'll be killed. Maybe, he said quietly, but I'll be damned if I hand you over. Eleanor's eyes burned. You don't even know me. He stepped closer. Close enough the firelight warmed his face. I don't need to know everything to know what's right. Eleanor's breath shook. Cole, if they kill you, what happens to Lila? His jaw clenched because she was right. Grant cleared his throat. We ain't dying. Not today. We'll barricade the windows. Load the rifles. Use the house as cover. Storm's on our side. Eleanor whispered, I don't want anyone hurt because of me. Cole turned slowly, his eyes locking on hers. Fierce, steady, unyielding. You didn't bring this trouble, he said. They did. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You hear me, Eleanor? You ain't running from this house, and you ain't fastening it alone. A tear slid down her cheek. Lila lifted her head, trembling. Don't let Mama go, she whispered. Eleanor pressed her lips to the girl's hair. I'm not leaving. Cole watched them. The woman his daughter had chosen. The woman he didn't know how to protect without falling apart. Then he turned toward the door. We have 4 hours until killers reach my land, he said. He loaded a second rifle, handed it to Grant. Then he handed the third to Eleanor. Her hands trembled. Cole, I don't want to. You won't need to use it, he said softly. But hold it anyway. Eleanor gripped the rifle. Lila grabbed her sleeve. Grant moved to the windows. Cole stepped to the door, listening to the wind. Then, positions, he said, and the storm screamed in answer. The house settled into a tense, humming quiet, the kind that sat heavy in the bones. The storm outside roared like a wounded animal, wind slashing at the windows, rattling the shutters. Snow blew sideways, thick and blinding, wiping the world clean beyond the lamplight. Inside, the lanterns were low, the fire reduced to a glowing bed of coals. Shadows danced across the walls, long, bending, nervous. Cole moved through his own home like a soldier returning to a battlefield. Every rifle he checked, every shutter he bolted, every window he reinforced seemed carved into him by memory. Grant followed behind, his boots leaving wet tracks across the floor. Been a long time since I fortified a place, he muttered. Feels like the war again. Cole didn't answer. He was listening, always listening. The storm filled every silence except the one inside him, cold, razor-sharp focus. Eleanor stayed near the center of the room, Lila curled in her lap beneath a quilt, her tiny fingers gripping the fabric near Eleanor's heart. The child hadn't slept since the pounding at the door. Her big brown eyes glimmered with fear and something else, trust. Trust that didn't belong to a woman who'd arrived just hours ago. Eleanor stroked the girl's hair, her own pulse racing. She felt out of place holding a rifle, but she held it anyway, barrel pointed to the floor, hands trembling. She'd escaped danger before. But this time, she wasn't alone. This time, a child depended on her. Cole walked over to her, crouching beside the sofa. He set one hand gently on Lila's back. "You all right, sweetheart?" Lila nodded, but only because Eleanor nodded for her. Cole's jaw softened for a moment. "Good girl." He looked at Eleanor. "You scared?" She let out a shaky breath. "Yes." "Good," he said quietly. "Means you'll be careful." Eleanor swallowed. "Should we leave?" "Hide in the cellar." Cole shook his head. "Cellar doors outside. They'd see us." In the stormed freeze, Lila solid. "We stay put." A gust of wind slammed hard against the west wall. The rafters groaned. Grant cursed under his breath. "This house will blow apart for the outlaw." Fingers shook so badly Lila reached up and squeezed her hand as if to steady her. "I was married," Eleanor whispered. "Long ago, before the war, before the field hospital, before everything." She looked toward the window, snow hammering the panes like fists. "My husband was not who he pretended to be." Grant leaned against the table, listening. Cole remained still, but his eyes softened. "You don't have to tell it," he said. "Not unless you want to." "I do," Eleanor whispered. "Because you deserve the truth." She swallowed hard. "When I left him, he swore he would find me. Swore he would drag me home. I ran across 3 states to escape him. I changed my name. I hid my past." Lila curled closer into Eleanor's arms. "I thought I'd outrun him," she said, voice breaking. "But maybe I didn't." Cole exhaled slowly, a long, tight sound that seemed to pull every hair on his body into alertness. "He won't get you," he said. No hesitation, no doubt. "You don't know him," Eleanor whispered. Cole leaned in closer, voice quiet but harder than iron. "You ain't heard what folks say about me. When I make a promise, I keep it. You're safe under my roof." A lump formed in her throat. "Why would you risk your life for me?" He held her gaze. "Because Lila needs you," he said simply. Lila's small hand slipped into Eleanor's. And Eleanor realized something. Cole Maddox was not fighting for her. Promise. A gunshot cracked the night. Lila screamed. Eleanor pulled her close as the echoes rattled the window glass. Downstairs, Cole's voice boomed like thunder. "Grant, take the left flank." Another gunshot, then another. Voices shouted outside, muffled by snow. Boots slammed across the porch. Glass shattered. Eleanor gasped. Lila buried her face in her neck. Then, a man's voice rose from below. "Dark, hungry. Eleanor Price. Come out now, and we'll let the cowboy live." Lila whimpered. Eleanor froze. Cole's voice exploded in rage. "You ain't touching her." Gunfire answered. Lila trembled uncontrollably. Eleanor stroked her hair. "It's all right. He won't let them." But her voice faltered, because she had heard that voice before. Long ago, whispering threats behind closed doors. Her stomach twisted. Her husband wasn't dead. He was here. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. Cole roared from below. "Eleanor, run." Eleanor clutched Lila to her chest and scrambled to her feet. The doorknob began to turn. Slowly, deliberately, and a familiar voice murmured through the crack. "Darlin', you really thought you could hide from me?" The doorknob kept turning, slow, steady, like the hand on the other side wanted her to hear every inch of metal scrape. Wanted her to fear it. Eleanor backed away, pulling Lila behind the heavy oak bed frame. The quilt dragged along the floor. Lila's breath hitched, small and quick. The voice slid through the crack in the door like oil. "Eleanor, open it." Lila whimpered. Eleanor covered the girl's mouth gently. Another gunshot thundered from below. Glass shattered. Grant shouted something she couldn't understand through the chaos. Then Cole's voice rose, raw, furious, shaking the walls. "You step 1 foot in that room, and I'll put you in the ground." The scraping stopped. Silence settled over the hallway. Thick, heavy wrong. Eleanor held her breath. Lila buried her face in her shoulder. The voice came again, softer now, coaxing. You always were emotional, darling. Always needed a strong hand to guide you. Her stomach twisted. He hadn't changed at all. A shadow moved under the gap of the door. He was crouching, listening, waiting. Open it, Eleanor, he whispered, or I'll open it for you. The knob jerked hard. The wood around the lock splintered. The door rattled in its frame. Eleanor tightened her grip on Lila, whispering, It's all right. I've got you. The door slammed again. Harder. Then again. Cracks formed in the hinges. She scanned the room in desperation. No gun, no knife. Just the bed frame, the dresser, and a heavy iron fireplace, poker leaning against the cold stones. She grabbed it. Her hand shook, but she held it like a woman who'd learned too late what it cost to be defenseless. A fourth slam rocked the door. The hinges screamed, and downstairs, Cole roared, Eleanor, don't you open that door. Then, a sound that chilled her blood. Cole cried out, not a yell, a pain-filled, guttural sound that tore through the floorboards. Papa! Lila screamed. Her tiny voice carried through the house. Heavy boots thundered up the stairs. Not one man. 3. Eleanor grabbed Lila, spun her toward the window. Go, she whispered. Hide under the bed. Don't come out unless I say your name. The child trembled. Eleanor now, sweetheart. Lila crawled fast, slipping beneath the bed frame, pulling the quilt with her. Her small face disappeared into the shadows. The door hinges snapped. The door burst inward, slamming against the wall. 3 men stood in the ruined doorway, snow-drenched, rifles drawn, breath steaming in the cold air pouring through shattered windows downstairs. The man in front tilted his head. Dark hair, cruel smile, a face Eleanor had tried to forget. Hello, wife. Her heart stopped. She held the fireplace poker like a weapon. He laughed. Look at you, pretending to be brave. His eyes flicked around the room. Where's the girl? Eleanor didn't move, didn't blink. He smiled wider. I'll find her. Children scream when you pull him out of corners. Something snapped inside her, something that had been broken for years and stayed broken far too long. No, she said quietly. You won't touch her. The other 2 men stepped into the room. Her husband lifted his rifle, and that's when another gunshot cracked the hallway. One of the outlaws lurched, dropping his weapon as blood splattered across the doorway. Behind him, Cole Maddox stood, bracing himself against the wall, rifle in one hand, blood running down his arm. Get away from her, he growled. Eleanor's breath caught. He was hurt badly. His shirt soaked, dark and spreading. Her husband snarled. You don't know when to die, cowboy. Cole lifted the rifle again, but his legs buckled. He dropped to one knee. Papa! Lila cried from under the bed. All 3 outlaws' heads snapped toward the sound. Her husband grinned. There she is. He started toward the bed. Eleanor moved. She didn't think, didn't plan, didn't hesitate. She swung the iron poker with every ounce of strength she'd ever lost, every insult she'd ever swallowed, every bruise she'd ever hidden. The metal cracked against his jaw. He reeled back, stumbling into the wall. The second outlaw lunged toward her. Cole shot him before he took 2 steps, the bullet throwing him back like a rag doll. But the recoil made Cole collapse fully to the floor. Cole! Eleanor cried. Her husband wiped blood from his mouth and straightened, his temper rising like a storm. You hit me, he hissed. You dare raise a hand to me? Eleanor gripped the poker. I'm not yours anymore. Eleanor, move. Cole shouted. Another outlaw fired from the doorway. Cole grabbed Eleanor by the waist with his good arm and yanked her to the floor as a bullet tore through the wall. The house shook from the blast. Eleanor crawled on her elbows toward the bed. Lila, stay down. The child whimpered beneath the frame. Cole fired again, but his hand was shaking. He was losing blood too fast. His aim wavered. Her husband advanced on Cole, fury twisting his features. You took what's mine, he growled. I'll kill you for it. Cole tried to lift his rifle, but it slipped from his fingers. The outlaw kicked it away. Cole! Eleanor screamed. Her husband raised his boot to stomp Cole's skull. Eleanor charged. They collided with a crash, both slamming into the dresser. Drawers spilled, clothes scattered. The impact knocked the wind from her lungs. He grabbed her hair, slammed her against the dresser. "I should have finished you years ago." A gun clicked behind him. He froze. Cole stood, swaying, barely upright, holding a pistol aimed at the outlaw's spine. "Touch her again," Cole whispered, "and I'll send you straight to hell." The outlaw didn't turn. "You ain't got the strength to pull that trigger." Cole's hand trembled. Blood dripped from his fingertips. The outlaw laughed, a low, ugly sound. "You're dead already, cowboy." Then another voice cut through the storm. Not loud, not angry, not frightened. Small, steady. "Let her go." Everyone froze. Lila stood beside the bed, holding the rifle Cole had dropped earlier. It was almost too big for her, but she held it, pointed, hands shaking, eyes brave. Her father, that monster, stared at her in disbelief. "Lila," he said, "put that down." She didn't. Her chin lifted. "Papa says I don't have to obey bad men." Cole's breath hitched. Eleanor's eyes filled. Her husband snarled, "You ain't her papa?" "Not anymore." Cole steadied the pistol in his bleeding hand. "Maybe," he whispered, "but I'm a man she trusts." For the first time, the outlaw's confidence wavered. The room held its breath. The storm held its breath. Eleanor reached slowly toward Lila, voice soft. "Sweetheart, give me the gun. It's all right." Lila swallowed hard and handed Eleanor the rifle. Eleanor stood, battered, shaking, but unbroken, and leveled the weapon at her husband. "I'm done running," she said, "and I'm done being afraid." He glared. "You won't shoot me." Eleanor's voice was steady. "I don't have to." She nodded toward Cole, and Cole, with the last ounce of strength left in him, pulled the trigger. The outlaw staggered, stared at Cole in disbelief, fell to his knees, and collapsed to the floorboards. Silence fell like snow. Eleanor lowered the rifle. Lila ran to Cole, sobbing. "Papa, you hurt." Cole knelt, wincing, pulling her into his arms with his good hand. "I'm all right, little one. I'm right here." Eleanor dropped to her knees beside them, her hands trembling as she checked his wound. "We need to get you downstairs," she whispered. "You're losing too much blood." Cole looked at her, eyes soft, pain blurred, full of something deeper than fear. "Eleanor," he murmured. "Yes." "You didn't run." Her eyes filled. "I told you. I'm done running." He smiled, faint, tired, grateful, then sagged against her as Grant rushed into the room. The outlaw lay still in a growing pool of blood. But the danger wasn't over. Grant's voice dropped. "There's one more. Took off around the barn. Might come back with more." Eleanor tightened her grip on Cole's shoulders. Lila curled between them. The storm outside quieted to a whisper, and the long night wasn't done with them yet. The lantern swung wildly as Grant led the way down the stairs, its light shaking across the walls like frightened breath. Eleanor kept one arm around Cole, half carrying his weight, while the other held Lila tight against her hip. Cold air poured in through the broken window beside the door. Snow drifted across the floorboards. The ranch no longer felt like home. It felt like the last place on earth holding them together. Cole's boots dragged. He stumbled. "Easy," Eleanor whispered, her voice trembling. "Just a little farther, Cole. Stay with me." He exhaled sharply, each breath thinner than the last. "Not going anywhere." He tried to smile, but pain stole it before it formed. Grant spread fresh blankets across the long table in the kitchen. "Lay him here. Quick." Eleanor eased Cole down, her heart pounding like hooves on hard earth. Lila clung to her sleeve, wide-eyed and silent, trembling from the shock of everything she'd seen. Grant tore open Cole's blood-soaked shirt. The wound was ugly, a ragged tear just below the ribs. "He's losing too much blood," Grant muttered. "If that last outlaw returns, he might not need to kill us. Cole won't last till morning." "No," Eleanor whispered, gripping Cole's hand. "He will. He has to." Cole's eyelids fluttered. "Don't cry, Ellie." But she already was. "Grant," she said, voice cracking, ride to Doc Hollins. "Bring him here. I'll keep Cole alive." Grant hesitated. The snowstorm outside was thinning, but the dark carried dangers of its own. What if the outlaw comes back while I'm gone? Grant asked quietly. Eleanor looked up, eyes sharp with a strength she hadn't known she had 1 month ago. Then I'll handle it. Grant nodded, trust passing between them like a silent oath. He grabbed his rifle, swung in his coat, and pushed out into the storm. The wind howled behind him. The door slammed. They were alone. Eleanor pressed clean cloths to Cole's wound. Blood soaked through immediately, hot against her shaking hands. "Stay with me," she whispered. "I'm not letting you go, Cole Maddox. Not tonight. Not like this." His breathing hitched, slow, uneven. Lila crawled up onto the bench beside the table and laid her small hand gently on Cole's arm. "You gotta get better," she whispered. "You gotta, Papa." Cole opened his eyes, just enough to see her. "Hey, little bird." His voice was a faint rasp. "You were brave today. Braver than most men I've known." Lila's lips wobbled. "Don't die." He tried to lift his hand to her cheek. His fingers barely moved. "I won't," he whispered. "I promised you pancakes tomorrow." A sound escaped Eleanor, half laugh, half sob. "You're ridiculous," she said softly. "Maybe," Cole breathed, "but I like making you smile." A crack sounded outside. Wood. Footsteps in snow. Eleanor froze. Lila's fingers tightened on Cole's arm. The remaining outlaw. He'd come back. A shadow moved past the front window. Eleanor grabbed the rifle leaning against the wall and quietly cocked it. She ushered Lila behind the stove. "Don't make a sound," she whispered. "Not one. Protect Cole. That's your job." Lila nodded, eyes fierce. Eleanor stepped into the center of the room, rifle raised. The front door creaked. Slow, deliberate. A boot stepped inside, heavy, mud-caked. "Evening," a voice drawled. "Thought I'd find a lot of you bleeding or begging by now." Eleanor took aim. "Leave. Now." "Well, ain't this something?" He stepped closer. Woman holding a rifle like she knows how to use it. "I do." His grin widened. "Your husband's dying on that table, ma'am. You can't save him." Eleanor didn't blink. "He isn't my husband." "Then you're risking your life for nothing." Eleanor stepped forward, eyes steady, breath calm. "No, I'm risking it for everything." The outlaw raised his pistol. Eleanor fired first. The blast shook the house. Smoke curled in the air. The outlaw staggered backward, grabbed the door frame, and collapsed into the snow. Silence. Eleanor lowered the rifle, breath shaking. From behind the stove, Lila whispered, "Did we win?" Eleanor dropped to her knees, pulled Lila into her arms, holding her tight enough to shake. "We survived," she whispered. "That's enough." But then she heard a sound worse than the gunshot. Cole's breathing weakening. Fast. She rushed to his side. His eyes drooped. "Stay with me, Cole," she begged. "Grant's bringing the doctor. Just stay with me." Cole coughed slightly. His hand searched for hers. She grabbed it, pressing it against her chest. "You came to the wrong ranch," he whispered. "Cole, and it saved me." Eleanor pressed her forehead to his. "You saved me, Cole. You saved Lila. Please, please don't leave now." His breath shuddered. Everything seemed to fade. Until a pounding at the door. Eleanor spun around. "Eleanor!" Grant shouted. "Open up. I have Doc Hollins." She ripped the door open. Grant stumbled inside with the doctor half frozen at his side. Doc Hollins threw his bag on the table and pulled back the blankets. "Move," he barked. Eleanor stepped aside, shaking. The doctor worked fast. Too fast. His hands blurred, stitching, cauterizing, pushing pressure to stop the bleeding. Grant held Cole's shoulders. Eleanor held his hand. Lila cried silently against Eleanor's leg. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Then the doctor leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow. "I'm not promising anything," he said quietly, "but he has a chance." A chance. Eleanor broke into tears. Grant let out a breath that rattled the windows. Lila climbed onto the chair and laid her tiny cheek against Cole's chest. "Wake up soon," she whispered. "We need you." The doctor finished bandaging him, then looked at Eleanor. "He'll be weak for weeks. Might be months. But if he makes it till morning," he glanced toward the window, "he'll likely make it the rest of the way." Eleanor pressed her hand to Cole's cheek. I'm right here, she whispered. You hear me? Right here. He didn't wake, but his fingers twitched around hers. She smiled through tears. That's enough, she whispered. That's enough for me. Cole woke 3 days later. Sunlight filled the room. Eleanor was asleep beside him, head resting on his arm, Lila curled on his other. Sighed. He took a slow breath. It hurt, but he was alive. He turned his head, looked at Eleanor. She looked peaceful in sleep, for the first time since he'd known her. He whispered, voice weak, Hey, Ellie. Her eyes opened instantly. Cole, she breathed, tears filling her eyes. He smiled faintly. You didn't run. She laughed softly, pressing her forehead to his. No, Cole. I think I finally came home. His hand rose, trembling, brushing her cheek. You too, you saved me. No, she whispered. We saved each other. He kissed her, soft, slow, full of every unspoken promise they'd earned through blood and fear and stubborn love. Grant stood in the doorway, arms crossed, smiling like a man who'd watched a legend being born. Lila grinned from the foot of the bed. Papa's awake. Cole looked at her, love warm in his tired eyes. Yeah, little bird, he whispered. Papa's home. They buried the past behind the barn. 3 mounds of earth. 3 men who'd come to take what wasn't theirs. Eleanor took Lila's hand. Cole, leaning heavily on Grant for support, watched in silence. I'm not afraid anymore, Eleanor said quietly. Cole reached for her hand. You'll